Late on a Sunday afternoon, 6 men are eating roast pig beside a pond in the woods of southeastern Virginia. One of them has brought brandy. Their leader does not arrive until 3 o'clock, and when he does, he asks a newcomer why he has come. The man answers that his life is worth no more than the others, and his liberty as dear. They are still talking long after dark. Welcome to Same Day, Different Century. I'm Zach. Today is August 21st. The place is Cabin Pond in Southampton County, Virginia, in the flat southeastern corner of the state along the North Carolina line. The year is 1831. The man who arrived at 3 o'clock is Nat Turner, 30 years old, enslaved, and known for miles as a preacher. Southampton is not the Virginia of great houses and long avenues of oaks. It's a county of small and middling farms growing cotton, corn, and apple brandy, where a typical owner holds a handful of people rather than 100. Black residents outnumber white ones, and roughly 10% of people in the county are free Black Virginians. The farms sit close together, and enslaved people move between them on errands, at church, and to visit husband and wives owned by other men. Turner's wife and son lived on a neighboring farm. He was born on October 2, 1800, on Benjamin Turner's farm. In 1821, he ran away. He stayed out 30 days and then came back on his own. In his account, the spirit had told him to return to the service of his earthly master. Other enslaved people were disgusted with him for it. The religion he practiced was not the one planters wanted preached. He fasted, prayed alone in the woods, and reported revelations. In 1825, white spirits and black spirits fighting in the sky, with blood running in streams. Later, figures and characters he found written on leaves. On the 12th of May, 1828, he heard the spirit tell him the time was near, that the first should be last and the last first, and that a sign would be given. In these years, a white man named Elthedred Brantley came to him, and the two of them walked into the water together in front of a jeering crowd, after the church refused to baptize either one. Historians place his theology alongside the millennial movements then spreading through American Protestantism, rather than treating it as something peculiar to Southampton. He believed God still spoke, and that he was being spoken to. The sign came on the 12th of February, 1831, when a solar eclipse crossed Virginia. Turner read it as the instruction he had been promised and set the date for the 4th of July. Then he fell ill and the day passed. On the 13th of August, the sun over the eastern United States went strange, dimmed and shaded silver, then greenish, visible up and down the coast. That was a strange year for skies. Ice core chemistry has only just traced the haze that cooled the whole northern hemisphere in 1831 to Zavaritsky, a caldera on an uninhabited island in the Kurile chain. The sun Turner saw was probably a nearer accident, a volcano that surfaced off Sicily that July and sank again by winter. Turner read the discolored sun as the second signal. 8 days later, he sat down at Cabin Pond. What was settled by the end of that dinner was not only that they would rise, but how, and the how had been shaped by every plot that failed before it. Virginia had a history of rebellions that never began. Gabriel's conspiracy outside Richmond in 1800 was betrayed by 2 enslaved men before a shot was fired. The alleged Denmark-Vesey plot in Charleston in 1822 was reported to authorities weeks in advance. The lesson Turner drew was secrecy. He confided in 4 men he trusted absolutely: Henry, Hark, Nelson, and Sam, and told no one else until the final hours. He stockpiled nothing. Weapons would be taken from the houses they struck. Numbers would come the same way: move fast, strike visibly, and enslaved people would join as word spread. They left the pond 2 hours after dark on Sunday, August 21st, and walked to the farm of Joseph Travis. Turner was legally the property of Travis's stepson, a boy named Putnam Moore. Hark set a ladder against the chimney. Turner went up it, forced a window, came down the stairs and unbarred the door, and immediately went for the guns. It was understood among them that Turner would spill the first blood. In the dark, his hatchet glanced off Travis's head, and Will finished it. They killed the household, overlooking the infant in the cradle, but ultimately going back for it. The return tells you the terms they had set. Neither age nor sex was to be spared. Through the 22nd, they moved farm to farm. The Francis Place, Elizabeth Turner's, Catherine Whitehead's, and Levi Waller's. Some men mounted, some on foot, killing with axes and hatchets and swords, then with guns as they took them. At Waller's, where children from nearby farms attended a small school, they killed Waller's wife and 10 children. 55 white people died over roughly 12 hours, most of them women and children. The recruitment did not work the way the plan required. Some men joined at once, but at Catherine Whitehead's, where 27 enslaved people lived, at most one went with them. At Newitt Harris's, larger still, none did. A free black man named Emery Evans refused outright. Others were carried along and slipped away. The force peaked somewhere between 40 and 60 men, enough to overwhelm isolated households and nowhere near enough to hold ground. By late morning, the county knew. Families were running for Jerusalem, the county seat, or barricading themselves in the strongest houses within reach, and the surprise Turner's entire method depended on was spent. His objective was now Jerusalem itself, where the arms were. He never reached it. At James Parker's farm, some of his men stopped, partly to recruit and by some accounts to drink, and in the delay a militia party under Alexander Pete formed on the road. Turner's men drove them from the field, then ran directly into the reinforcements Pete had fallen back toward. The rebel force broke. Southampton's wide population could arm and assemble faster than Turner could recruit, and every hour after sunrise favored them. Militia arrived from neighboring counties and from North Carolina. Artillery was called out. Sailors from a warship at Norfolk and regulars from Fortress Monroe came up too and found it already finished. The response due an army, raised against a few dozen men carrying farm tools and stolen guns. Turner regrouped roughly 40 men that night at Thomas Ridley's place, but they were leaking away by the hour. On the morning of the 23rd, they rode at the Blunt farm and met defenders who had been warned and were waiting. The rebels scattered, and Turner lost hold of them. Less than 48 hours after the first blow, the revolt was over. The reprisals began before the last rebels were taken. Militia and mobs killed black people across Southampton and the counties around it, most of whom had no connection to the revolt. Suspects were tortured. Severed heads were mounted on poles at crossroads, and a road in the county carried the name Blackhead Signpost Road into this century. How many died this way is unsettled. Some studies accept well over 100. Others, working from county-level records, put the number in Southampton at a few dozen. The defensible range runs from about 3 dozen to more than 200. On the 28th of August, a militia commander, Richard Epps, ordered the summary killings stopped under threat of the Articles of War, and they largely stopped. The courts were by comparison careful. Trials opened on the 31st of August before courts of Oyer and Terminer, no juries, slaveholding judges, and defendants who were legally property. 30 enslaved people were convicted and sentenced to death, and the same judges recommended commutation in 12 of those cases, citing youth, slight involvement, or evident reluctance. 18 were hanged, and 12 were sold out of Virginia instead. Turner was not among the first. He spent 2 months hiding within a few miles of where it started. 6 weeks in a hole under a pile of fence rails, and when a dog found that, a fortnight in another he dug with his sword, until a farmer named Benjamin Phipps came across him on the 30th of October. In jail he talked for 3 days to a local attorney, Thomas Ruffin Gray, who copyrighted the result the day before Turner was hanged. It was printed in Baltimore in an edition of 50,000 at 25 cents. It's also the only extended account of Turner in anything like his own voice, but historians have never agreed on how to read it. Some treat it as a collaboration in which Turner's language survives Gray's handling. Others treat it as a document built by a white Southerner to render the revolt the work of a fanatic rather than a response to slavery. Court records corroborate much of its chronology, but that does not settle the question of the voice. Turner was convicted on the 5th of November and hanged on the 11th. Roughly 2,000 Virginians petitioned the legislature about slavery, and in the session of 1831 and 1832, the General Assembly debated ending it. A committee found emancipation inexpedient. No Southern legislator would seriously debate abolition from the inside again. Thomas Roderick Dhu, a professor at William and Mary, published a review of those debates arguing that emancipation could not be done and need not be, and it became a foundation of the argument the South made for the next 3 decades. What the Assembly did pass was a wall of restrictions, and most other slave states followed. Black preaching was outlawed outright, ordained or not, and going to hear it cost 39 lashes. The movement and assembly of free black people were narrowed. Printing or passing along an abolitionist pamphlet was made a crime. Virginia answered a rebellion it could not explain by silencing its preachers and policing what could be printed and carried, and that answer has proven more durable than the institution it was written to protect. That same day, different century. I'm Zach. We'll be back Monday with another date, another story. Thanks for listening.